Hey guys, welcome to part 1 to what if Naruto was strong, and what do I exactly mean by that? Well, there are two meanings in Naruto verse to being somewhat strong. Either slightly gains, extreme levels of chakra control to the point where he can multiply his strength to the point where he can just one punch a person, and what I mean by that is that he punches holes through people, he can level mountains potentially, or he trains his physical strength to a point of where he can then use his chakra to enhance his strength a bit, and that's kind of what we're going with. And yeah, just before we start this, I know this isn't what was chosen to be the what if that you guys wanted, but I kind of figured screw it, just to kind of do this one and see if you guys like this. And an hour after this goes live, there should be a poll that will allow you to, or at least that will, where you can vote on either you want part 2 to this or part 3 to what if now something about Naruto. Oh, what if Naruto was a female civilian, I think. Yeah, anyway, with that, let's get into this. So, Naruto would be 7 years old and he'd be somewhat in his home, and he'd be somewhat lifting some weights, and he'd somewhat grumble about how light these, or at least somewhat not how light these were, but that they weren't really that heavy anymore. And sure, he owned them for about 2, maybe 3 weeks, and he's kind of grumbling that he'd have to get a new set to kind of get him even stronger. And so he kind of knew at this point he no civilian can lift this level of weight, and he kind of wonder, or at least for a moment, why, when it kind of come to him that it was because he was a shinobi, or at least a shinobi in training, that he could use chakra, and hit him, he'd remember that, well, yeah, civilians, everyone has chakra, but civilians can't use that chakra. It's not flowing throughout them. And you'd somewhat wonder if maybe he could stop his chakra from flowing, because at one point it wasn't, and well, once he, kind of that he'd learned, like everyone else, how to, open it up, but not to kind of close it again, as well, yeah, and you'd wonder that if he were to close it, or at least if he were to stop his chakra from flowing, what would kind of happen. And well, you'd figure that it may get a bit weaker, but maybe not all that much. Maybe he'd get weak enough that these would actually feel heavy, and maybe you'd have to use his previous ones, which would kind of be a bit nice. And so from there, 7 weeks would go by, and he would try and attempt to close his chakra, at least to, pretty much close his chakra points, or stop his chakra from flowing. And after, as I said, 7 weeks later, he would finally manage to do so, as he'd somewhat similarly open his eyes, similarly slowly. He'd simply, for anyone else looking in, it would be eyes, as getting his eyes adjusted to light, but no, he was actually almost straining to open his eyes, which would tell him that he kind of, or at least that he himself, and that probably most likely every other shinobi in training, has gotten too used to use chakra to a point where that muscle's only there to keep their arms attached to their body, and that they mainly use actually chakra. And you realise, that if he was struggling this much just to open his eyes, that he couldn't think, just how hard a Jonin or that was going to have it, or maybe even the old man or that. And yeah, though once he'd get his eyes open, a second or so later, it'd also, feel hell, he'd be punched over a bit, as he'd felt his entire body was heavy, like he was wearing a weighted jacket, yet he wasn't, and he'd try to lift up his hands, and they felt in his arms, and they felt heavy. And yeah, he'd manage to unzip the top or his jacket that he was wearing, and would pull it off, feeling almost, or at least a bit lighter. And yeah, he'd after a few seconds would manage to get himself up on his legs, at which point his legs would almost immediately turn to jelly. And yeah, and started to kind of realise that, or at least that that looking at somewhat the ways, he'd kind of realised that or at least that if he wanted to train like this, that he'd probably be going all the way back to the weights he first bought, potentially, and once he got used to it. He'd do, and about 2 months or 8 weeks later, he'd finally gotten used to just something, I found his legs now didn't feel like jelly when he shut his chakra off, and he didn't feel like he was wet, he gained an extra 2 tons of weight, all that. And yeah, so from there he'd go over to his closet, all that, and he'd open up a small case which would have some weights in, and from there he'd pick up the lightest ones, which would almost somewhat send him forward. So in that, even though they may be, or at least that even though he may be able to lift the, even though he may be able to lift simply, or at least somewhat enough weight to make any 7-year-old jealous, that these small weights that probably any 7-year-old could lift, he simply almost couldn't pull out. They would manage to, and they would feel a bit heavy, which would make him somewhat excited, because if these felt a bit heavy, then by the time he'd say finish just doing like the box, he'd somewhat be hope that he'd be strong enough that he could maybe knock, he could actually rival Sasuke in strength, if not surpass him. It'd kind of excite him. And yeah, from there you'd start training that with them, and after somewhat, or at least as he'd be doing that, after a while he'd sort of wonder if he could potentially limit where his chakra were, so to go through his body, that potentially maybe just somewhat only, or at least say staying in sort of this state, and then only say flowing chakra to say like his hands when he needs to use a jutsu or that, instead of having his chakra always flowing and then just molding chakra, and the jutsu works. And yeah, pretty much making him incredibly stealthy to any sensor nin. And the more he thought about that, the more he almost wanted, the more he kind of wanted to do that, as that level of chakra control is extreme, to a point where hardly anyone, if not no one's actually tried doing so. And that's what he would proceed to do, and 2 years later, that with him being now 9, he'd managed to somewhat do so. Mainly, what he'd be trying to do would be using the transformation jutsu. A jutsu which uses a small but constant amount of chakra after the initial burst of chakra to transform the person. And and so it's managed to stop the flow of his chakra in his legs, his neck, and his head. So the only chakra that was kind of currently flowing at the moment, anytime he wanted to do transformation, was his chest, and or at least all, sort of flowing would be all the chakra in his chest and arms and that. And that, chakra would be, say, going into his muscles and organs and that, which he didn't, they, just wasted, to a degree, wasting somewhat energy. And he also found he had a lot more energy when he stopped the flow of chakra, because his chakra wasn't being used, his physical and mental energy wasn't being used, and yeah. Anyway, and yeah, though also he'd actually kind of started, or at least 2 weeks back, he'd started to equal Sasuke in strength, and by now he was sort of using about, or at least when he'd fight Sasuke, because then, not really allowed to use chakra to enhance their strength or speed, but Naruto knows sort of his speed and strength, and that is naturally enhanced, or at least chakra naturally enhances your speed and that. And so he's pulling chakra, or at least he's, so instead of allowing the normal amount of chakra that circulates throughout him, he was pretty much, or at least he was making that smaller to kind of always, pull and draw out on Sasuke, which kind of made him, Sasuke somewhat annoyed, as, the dead last was now rivaling him, and that anytime he got stronger, Naruto suddenly got the exact strength, and under him, Naruto was stronger than him, and, well, yeah. Anyway, though a year would, or at least, though also, because it'd be, from there, a year would pass, and he would finally succeed in truly, doing it. So he needed, heavily concentrate, as today he'd finally succeeded, as he'd sort of put his hands together, he'd concentrate hard as he'd flow chakras, instead of chakra somewhat leaking out into his muscles and that being useless and just wasting more chakra and increasing his likelihood of, say, being fight by sensing in his, I forget what it's called, but yeah, from there, though, he put his hands together and he hands on to do the transformation jutsu, and he'd put his somewhat chakra to his hands and mould it as he proceeded to do transformation jutsu, which the smoking out would quickly dispel, as it was, as I said, an extreme level of chakra control. And, well, yeah, so once the smoke would clear, you'd, look at himself, which would be a naked, female sexy jutsu. And, yeah, though there would be, smoke around his lower half, or some smoke around him, as he did 2 weeks ago, or at least about a week and a half ago, figured out what was causing that, which was just himself not really kind of liking the fact that he simply kind of, or at least didn't feel, or at least weird, that he, in a way, didn't kind of believe he was truly a girl, in a way that he kind of didn't want to really see them. And so the smoke always kind of formed to, in a way, shield them, to hide them from his view. And yeah, like once he finally, accepted, simply that was simply a part of him, the smoke disappeared, and yeah. And yeah, from there though, he'd wonder what would happen if he were to stop the flow of chakra. Would smoke immediately erupt and he, transform back to his normal self, or would it be more of a kind of slow like very slow reversion back to its normal self as the chakra leaves, say, his body and that too. And yeah, so he would, cut the chakra, and yeah, he'd immediately feel himself getting somewhat smaller. Or at least the weight on its chest would obviously start getting lighter as the chest would shrink. His hair would also shrink and that. And yeah, though he would kind of keep, or at least he would kind of somewhat stand down as, of course, he slowly reverted back. Eventually you'd watch as similarly, his penis would form. And yeah, eventually you'd be back to normal, and yeah, you'd somewhat dislike the speed in which it took, but then again, well, yeah, you'd assume that if it was, like in enemy territory or that, and he needed to be very stealthy, you'd use this, you'd kind of cut the flow to his chakra and slowly transform back, and that otherwise he would just release the transformation jutsu, which would make his chakra signature momentarily bigger, as he'd be pushing, or at least he'd be dispelling a jutsu. But yeah, and yeah, from there he'd, few weeks or months or that later, he'd try and do the gaining exams, to which he would fail, and 2 years would pass from there, as he would also kind of somewhat decide to learn how to transform into other, some other creatures or that, or other animals, mainly due to a curiosity on kind of how, or at least somewhat, it kind of reverted him back from being a dog, and yeah, anyway, though something he did also somewhat like doing, because normally you could sense him anytime he did a transformation, he transformed, at least that, because the chakra leakage was so small that you really had to be a very, very damn sensitive sensing to be able to pick up the small amount of chakra he was leaking out. And yeah, and of course, so that somewhat meant that he'd, or at least somewhat did, he'd of course seen adults go to certain places, and sure, he'd tried doing the transformation before, but of course the bouncers who were generally generally with height, sensings and that, would generally point him off in the different direction, not allowing him in, as they could feel chakra coming from him. And yeah, although they couldn't, so they would simply let this woman in to, of course, really somewhat similarly not adult woman in, though of course it's just now to a someone 10, 11 or 12-year-old child. And yeah, so Naruto very much had gotten his fair share of what, or at least similarly adult, or at least, what kind of adult fun similarly was. And yeah, anyway, though he was only really good at flowing his chakra, or at least he was only really good at kind of minimizing his chakra, or at least he was only really good at doing that with using only one jutsu. So say if he was trying to do like a tree walking and stick a leaf to his forehead, it'd be somewhat, it would go from being similarly easy to being very hard, as somewhat he'd go from, or at least as he's somewhat only used to flown, say, or at least tree walking, you'd have to send chakra through his the chakra points through his legs and then out through his feet. As a normal shinobi would just push chakra out of their feet. Yeah, that of course, Naruto, has to then keep track of the chakra and make sure it's staying, in the network and not going into the muscles and that wasting chakra and increasing his chakra signature. And yeah, anyway, though from there, of course, he'd be always you'd be on the string as around that he'd be in class, kind of waiting to find out whom he'd be put he'd be put on his team, and he was waiting for the students and that as he'd arrived somewhat early, and as well as Iruka as somewhat as well. He didn't exactly he'd passed like in canon. He failed the getting exams due to the clone jutsu, and whilst his chakra control, as I said, had improved massively, and whilst they were usable, they still looked kind of dead. And yeah, so they weren't exactly really passable, but they were a lot better than a year or two ago, so yeah. Anyway, though due to the of course his greater chakra control, he did actually manage to learn the Shell Clone Jutsu half an hour early. So instead of it taking him an hour, it only took him 30 minutes, half an hour to learn the Shadow and Multi-Shell Clone Jutsu. And from there, he proceeded to kind of go back through the Forbidden Scroll and read what maybe he could try and learn another jutsu, to which he'd sort of end up finding one called reanimation jutsu, to which he'd think about learning to maybe bring his parents back to life, but he'd kind of feel that thinking that he'd kind of realise that his parents may not be exactly happy at being brought maybe back to life. After all, they were dead. They should, as much as he didn't exactly like it, they probably should stay dead. And yeah, and after reading a bit, somewhat more, even though it's incomplete, it was clear it kind of required somebody to die to bring somebody back, from the dead. So yeah, they wouldn't exactly be happy about that. And yeah, though he would read about something about a contract still, and that somewhat if there was, or at least someone that had been reincarnated, that you could cancel the control, or at least the control of over the caster, if you could find the cast of the jutsu and then kind of place a contract cell on them, which would cancel out the other one, and it would confuse him, but he would kind of roughly understand it as if you just like if there are people from the dead, find the person who summoned them, put this odd contract and whatever that was on them, and do jutsu, or at least, and the people would have their own brilliance and that again, and yeah. And yeah, though from there you'd keep on looking through, and eventually you'd find a jutsu called Flying Thunder God, because version 1, as Rama was the main person who made up the Forbidden Scroll, as he made the most forbidden jutsu. And yeah, Naruto would end up reading over it at least 3 times, and on his 4th pass he'd hear some rustling in the bushes and that, and he'd quickly draw the scroll back up. And of course it would be Iruka, and from that point, kind of go like in canon, though Mizuki would suffer a lot more damage, and that he would suffer many broken bones, if not every bone that could be broken that wouldn't potentially kill him would be broken, and if not just shattered, pulverized potentially. And yeah, though of course Hiruzen would somewhat tell Naruto that, or at least would agree with Iruka to pass Naruto, but he would warn Naruto that if he tried doing anything like this again, now that he's a shinobi, he would be, he could be, put in jail or that. And, yeah, he just nodded and elucidated that he would, he wouldn't do it again. And, yeah, from there, he would, from there, of course, next day, and that would go pretty much like in canon with him, teaching Kanamaru this Exajutsu, and the next day, which is where we now currently are. And Naruto would shake his head from remembering how he was now, sitting here. And he was somewhat, though finally he could, or at least he kind of snapped out of it by the door simply sliding open, though it slid and opened multiple times though. This time as he'd somewhat look up, he would see it was Iruka, and from there, because Iruka would tell them how proud he was of all of them passing, and after a few more minutes of him telling how proud he was and whatever, and that did finally start going through teams 1 through 6 as he'd get to team 7, because he'd call out team 7 would consist of Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, which Naruto would be happy to be put on team with Sakura, but annoyed he was with Sasuke, and Sasuke was kind of just annoyed he was put on a team with either of them, but he or at least he was more annoyed at being put on the team with Sakura than really Naruto, while Naruto was kind of, well, you see, Sasuke's kind of now starting to see Naruto as a rival, someone who rivaled him in strength, even though Naruto had far surpassed him. But anyway, from there, the other two teams would get called out, and the canon events would kind of play on with them being dismissed, and Naruto or at least or at least kind of taking Sasuke off guard and transforming into him to try and get a kiss on Sakura and that stuff. And anyway, though, of course, 3 hours, or at least about 4 hours later, 3 hours later, like in canon, Kakashi would finally show up, and though, of course, during Hiruzen and Kakashi's talk when they were outside, probably at a park or somewhere, of course, somewhat, they'd look at, Naruto's stats, and they'd somewhat see when they'd got at Sasuke's stats, Naruto and Sasuke's kind of strength and speed were similarly the same, because he knew Naruto was probably a lot faster than Sasuke. After all, Naruto could outrun Chunin, and he tended to keep it within that, speed range, even though at this point he could just kind of dump chakra into his legs and easily escape them. And likewise, somewhat with his strength, it was equal to Sasuke. So Kakashi was kind of a bit, or at least somewhat, happy that, that he, wasn't, or at least that both, Naruto and Sasuke were strong, and, of course, somewhat, and he was kind of curious on, somewhat, Sakura, and he was kind of quietly praying that he hadn't been dumped with a fangirl, though he kind of figured that he probably had been. And and anyway, though, of course, Naruto would still, set up the same prank like in canon, and they would wind up on the rooftop with pretty much doing the exact same introductions as in canon, as well, none of that would really changed. And though from there, of course, the next day would roll around with them, not the similarly true gaining test, their similarly survival exam or whatever, Kakashi had called it, and yeah, the bell test. And yeah, from there, of course, somewhat, Sasuke, or at least once Kakashi would arrive again 3 hours later, of course, Naruto would, or at least would initially, trying to attack Kakashi, which would go like in canon, though Kakashi's thought, though Kakashi would be somewhat taken off kind of guard a bit, that, of course, sure, he'd managed to similarly dodge Naruto, but he couldn't sense Naruto. And yeah, sure, you could, somewhat, once it got, close enough, that is, so it was like, hey, something, is coming to harm us, or at least harm, you may want to, move, and yeah, that he, did, but and yeah, plus he could, see Naruto, but the fact couldn't actually sense any chakra from Naruto was, or at least was surprising, was, now did Naruto have, great control, or at least did Naruto know about, or at least, the ability to sense chakra in that, and he was compressing his, chakra thing, but, yeah, yeah, though of course from there, as always once he'd say start the fight with Kakashi, then proceed to let Naruto go and jump back, he would proceed, or at least though as Naruto would kind of get ready, Kakashi would proceed to simply pull out a book, though he would now all of a sudden seemingly be able to sense Naruto. He'd wonder kind of why he now was not confessing his chakra signature, and yeah, you wouldn't think too much about that when seemingly Naruto would perceive to seemingly almost disappear, and his senses scream at him to just get the hell into the air, to which he would, and yeah, he somewhat widened his eyes as Naruto was fast, very damn fast. Sasuke and Sakura would even be gobsmacked, and Sasuke would clench his fist and say, damn it, he never went all out against me anytime he sparred in the academy. He'd realise that, and Sakura couldn't believe what she was kind of seeing, that Naruto had moved so fast, and yeah, of course, Kakashi would immediately kind of put his book away, immediately, knowing that he had to take Naruto completely, seriously. He massively underestimated Naruto, to which point he would realise that Naruto had managed to kind of, or at least Naruto managed to manipulate the entire shinobi system to make him seem weaker than what he was, and yeah, of course Naruto didn't somewhat kind of, plan that out or anything like that, but Kakashi would wonder if Naruto did, then it he was incredibly smart, or was this just something that just kind of came along by mistake, and that he of course wasn't, too sure. And yeah, though once you'd somewhat land, though Naruto would charge at him again, and yeah, of course Kakashi would be able to keep track, of Naruto. Though Naruto would simply be at the, or at least the somewhat speed of a Jonin, and once Naruto would perceive to hit him, he'd also register that Naruto seemed to actually have the strength of a, Jonin. And yeah, though as the fight would simply go on, Naruto would simply seem to get faster and stronger, as Naruto would perceive to start pushing actual chakra into his muscles and that. And yeah, of course making Kakashi, or at least, which would make Kakashi really consider using his Sharingan, though eventually would, do the 1,000 years of dead and poke him in the butt. And yeah, of course from there, canon events would somewhat go along, though Kakashi would have a bit of a struggle against Naruto, as he would simply just vanish and then reappear out of nowhere. And it was clear Naruto could, or at least if he, or at least that, or at least he was almost 100% sure that Naruto knew about, sensory chakra, sensing people and whatever. And yeah, Naruto really didn't, but he did know where kind of Sasuke and Sakura roughly were. And yeah, as we, sort of like, in the Forest of Death arc, where he similarly, once he was separated from, Sasuke and Sakura, they similarly knew exactly where they were. It shouldn't be possible, as he was blown the furthest away, and also had a snake after him. So, yeah. Anyway, though, from there, he would, from there, though, of course, Kakashi would still somewhat end up tying up Naruto, as Naruto would eventually try and, kind of eat the, lunches. And, yeah, though, of course, Sasuke and Sakura would share their food, and, Kakashi would be pushed similarly by a magical force, a similarly invisible force, and it perceived to pass Team 7. And, yeah. And of course, from there, he'd, arrive similarly late to telling, if his team passed through. And yeah. And of course, after teams run through, or at least after teams run through 6 and 9, or at least 8 and 10 had said, that, or at least if their teams failed, passed failed, which of course team 8 and 10 did pass. That then, they would all look at Kakashi, to which he'd give his an ice smile, as he'd state that Team 7 passed. Yeah, to which Hizen would kind of smile, though he would be kind of curious as to why Kakashi seemed to have a bit of similar, kind of joy in his, joy in his voice, as, well, yeah, mainly because, Naruto was simply, someone extremely strong already. And while he was kind of somewhat wondering on, he was kind of getting excited as he could, train them in any path to, somewhat go, that he could train, the team to be, kind of more so based on stealth and that, which you'd figure would kind of suit them, though they would still have the, strength and that to, be frontline fighters like Team 7 generally is. Or at least Team 7 is generally jack of all trades, one, like, they're all similarly specialised in, kind of one field, similarly, all that, and, yeah, and, well, yeah, they could be, you could train them as, stealth, specialists, and, still have the, strength and that, and just raw power of a team that would be required, to fight on the front lines. And yeah, so the next day, of course, he'd, throughout that, day, you'd think, you'd sort of know that he'd have to, of course, teach them, tree walking, water walking, that, and more, and how to sense chakra and that, or at least make them aware, if they could naturally sense chakra, to make them aware that feeling someone's presence is actually sensing that chakra and that. And yeah, and of course helping with their stealth, skills and that, and just improving that. And yeah, and so that's what you'd perceive to kind of work, with them. Of course, he'd tell them the, next time when he'd meet up with them that, or at least somewhat on missions they were to work as a team, and that, and he'd, tell them that if they want any training from him, that they have to work as a team, and that if they don't work as a team, they're getting no training except for just teamwork and drills, and that if you don't want those and you want actual shinobi training, then to to then act as a team, to use teamwork to get the mission done. And yeah, which would of course not exactly make Sasuke happy and that, but nevertheless, of course Sasuke didn't exactly believe that, so the first day they would go without much training except for just a load of teamwork drills by the end of the day, and yeah, make sure that they truly did know that, truly meant it. And so from there, the day after that, Sasuke would try his best to work as a team of Naruto and even Sakura, to which they would be rewarded by getting some training, that being some, or at least actual tree walking, to which Naruto would, or at least Sakura would get into, so would Naruto, finding it, he wouldn't get her almost instantly, but he would get her after maybe 3 or 4 tries. And yeah, of course Sasuke would be kind of jealous, at those two, and Kakashi would actually kind of quietly be amazed at the level of control that Naruto has over his reserves, as he figured Naruto, being the Naruto's Jinchuriki and also Uzumaki, has massive reserves. And the fact that it only took him 3 or 4 tries to get it down showed that he had a truly, that he could truly simply control his chakra to a very high degree. And yeah, though of course Naruto would somewhat tell Sasuke kind of how to do it, and yeah, giving Sasuke some tips and tricks, and of course 6 or so days later they would get it, Sasuke would finally get it down, to which they would move on to water walking, as they would still be doing, or at least they would still be, acting as a team. And of course, it wasn't the only thing, of course, he was teaching them. And yeah, it was, anyway, though, or at least it was the main thing he was, focusing on, as he wanted to get tree and water walking done first before really heavily focusing on stealth, training how to stay, how to be stealthy and that. And yeah, though it would take them maybe a day or two to get water walking down, not really that long, as it was just like tree walking, just somewhat different. And yeah, from there you'd finally start teaching them, or at least finally tell them that you'd be training them now in kind of stealth and that. And yeah, though Sasuke would sort of state that he wanted, that, he'd kind of, Sasuke would kind of clench his fist, and though Kakashi would sort of remind them that they were shinobis, and generally that meant being, stealthy, and that if they really, and that if they, practiced their stealth, and that they could get more, much more seemingly dangerous missions and that, and potentially, earlier on. And yeah, and of course he was, still, making, still doing hand-to-hand combat and that with them, make sure they were getting, stronger and could very much fight. And also and of course assigning, rates to Sakura to bring up her strength, as it was, very bad. And yeah, Naruto was, somewhat thinking about telling maybe Sakura on how, or at least, somewhat he kind of trained to get so strong, but he, somewhat at this time, it wasn't 100% sure, as once they were a team, and once they tended to act as a team, there was still, the occasional day where they would go completely without really any training except for teamwork and drills, as either Sasuke or Sakura would start either maybe complaining about Naruto and start to blow up into an argument, and yeah. Though those days were getting fewer and fewer, and far in between. And yeah. And so a month would pass as they, because as Sakura would kind of give Tora back over to her owner, Kakashi would be thinking about potentially going maybe that first C rank, as Naruto and Sasuke were more than strong enough for, a normal below C rank escort missions. And yeah, before Kakashi could open his mouth, Naruto would open his and would complain about how easy the missions were, and that he wanted a harder mission to, prove that he wasn't seemingly like that no more. That, he was actually, true and serious shinobi. And yeah, of course, Hiruzen would, look over to, or at least after Iruka would somewhat explode, and Hiruzen would proceed to explain that, and after kind of being ignored by pretty much the entire team, listen to Naruto and what he had for dinner, and what he may have, tomorrow, or at least today, or that. Because Hiruzen would just ask Kakashi if he believed they were ready, to which Kakashi would immediately say yes, and that, in fact, he was going to ask if they could actually have a C rank before Naruto opened his mouth, to which Naruto would somewhat kind of blush and scratch his cheek in a bit of embarrassment. But Hiruzen would sort of nod, and yeah, though Iruka would go, something can't be serious, they've only been getting for a month, and he would look over to Iruka and he'd simply tell him to kind of have trust in his fellow, in his fellow shinobi, and that if Kakashi believed that they were ready, they were probably more than ready for that first C rank. And so from that, of course, Hiruzen, would give them the exact same mission like they would get in canon, that being the Land of Waves mission. And of course from that, Tazno would kind of, would perceive to, complain about, getting so many children, all these children and that, and yeah, though from there, they would end up, or at least after about, a few minutes or whatever, they would end up, going with Kakashi, telling them to meet him at the front gates, I believe the next day. Yeah, and to, of course, tell them, to pack for a month, and so the next day they would all meet up at the front gates, to which they would proceed to wait an extra 10 to 15 minutes for Kakashi. Though once he would arrive, they would proceed to set off towards the Land of Waves. And yeah, of course, as they would, as they would walk, of course, about 2 or 3 hours later, about midday, of course, they would, Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto would kind of would notice the puddle, and would somewhat notice, or at least Sasuke would kind of think it was a bit weird, as a puddle was giving off a small bit of Sakura, and Sasuke and Sakura could, feel something, or at least coming up, potentially shinobi, whereas Naruto could, immediately, tell there were 2 people that were coming up by, and as they would, all 3 would feel the chakra coming from the puddle. And yeah, though Kakashi would mentally smile that, they'd managed to sense it, though he could tell Naruto had sensed it about nearly half an hour back, showing just how somewhat similarly tuned to chakra Naruto was. And yeah, from there, of course, they would walk past, and the Demon Brothers would, jump out, and yeah, though they were already ready as Naruto and Sasuke would do an immediate 180 and would charge in, going straight past Kakashi and attacking the two Demon Brothers, to which they would proceed to try and land a hit on them, to which they would start fighting, though the Demon Brothers would manage at one point to kind of get or at least to get a big enough of gap, to which they would try and charge not simply Kakashi but instead Tazuna. Kakashi, seeing that they were after Tazuna and not him, would proceed to knock the two out and tie them up. And of course, after a bit of interrogation, would then turn to Tazuna and interrogate him. That the mission wasn't actually a C but a B, if not even A rank. And yeah, because from there, he'd state what he read in canon, and well, yeah, he'd tell the team that it was up to them if they wanted to continue, but if they did that, the mission was definitely B and potentially A rank, if not maybe even harder. And they would all agree with or at least not even saying that they couldn't exactly let this Gato person ruin, destroy this his village now, can we? Since it would look bad. And yeah, anyway, though, from there, of course, they would continue onwards up till the same point where pretty they would end up encountering Zabuza, which would go pretty much like in canon, with nothing really changing, as nobody really fought except for Kakashi. And well, yeah, of course, Kakashi would underestimate Zabuza, so he would still get put into the water prison, which Naruto would, or at least Naruto and Sasuke would come up with the same plan, but free Kakashi. And yeah, even though Sasuke and Sakura was more so kind of focused on protecting Tazuna, Sasuke was focused on the fight, though Naruto was focused on protecting Tazuna and the sort of fight between that sensei and Zabuza. He could feel a second chakra, a second present, one that he couldn't see, and he kind of, or at least he didn't exactly, well, he wasn't exactly sure if he should maybe shout out to for the person to simply come out on that, as it could potentially just be his imagination, or though just as he would similarly make up his mind, Kakashi would, or at least a Nukenin would similarly perceive to show themselves, to which Naruto would immediately met as that person, the person who was simply hiding. And before you could shout out to Kakashi to pretend, to or at least watch out for that, because or at least Zabuza would seem, or at least Kakashi would say Zabuza was dead and would let the Nukenin jump away, because Naruto would, or at least before, or at least though just as the Nukenin would grab onto Zabuza, Naruto would have a kunai out and shooting through the air, to which the Nukenin would, simply, or at least Armbu would see and would proceed to do the ascension. Of course, Kakashi would look over to Naruto, sort at him, and before he could really say anything, Kakashi would perceive to kind of pass out from chakra exhaustion, because they'd run over, and though Sasuke would look over to Naruto and go, "Dope, why did you attack that, missing, that, Ambu, so, that, ninja, as they were, and yeah, as they, killed Zabzaz." Naruto would simply say that he'd felt somewhat of a presence, at least a bit, someone's presence. I could feel that person's chakra, but I thought I was, maybe sensing things of that. And yeah, just as I was about to call out, shout out to come out, they showed himself, and yeah, of course, Sakura would go, "So you mean that that missing could actually be working with Zabza, but then why that person kill Zabza?" Now to shrug, I don't know, maybe the person didn't actually kill Zabza and instead put him into, I don't know, like a state, or at least in maybe kind of put Zabza in a way in which fake death, maybe, and yeah, of course, from there, once, they would arrive at, Tatsun's place, and Kakashi would wake up, he would tell them that indeed Zabza was most likely alive, with the nuke then putting, Zabza in a death-like state. And yeah, and with that, guys, I'm going to end this part here. So if you have enjoyed this part, do tell me, guys, and yeah, hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are and whenever you watch this, and good bye.